Any of your classic villains in a movie represents the sociopathic element. And I'll give you an example of an hybrid empath. Okay, remember the movie Saw? Well, the Jigsaw, the main character in the movie and also the main villain in the movie, supposedly, is actually a hybrid empath. Now, if you guys recall, in those movies, a lot of the people he tortured and were eventually either murdered themselves or some contraption or device that he would put in place to test them would murder them. So in essence, some of them could spare their own lives just by their own choices and their own decisions or whatever, or behaviors. And he would weigh them on this. He would let them hang themselves, so to speak. So on that level, he represents the greatest justice empath. He would represent karma, right? Self-reflection. So that would be an example of a hybrid empath. Apaths are the people in the middle. And typically, you guys are used by sociopaths because you just are. You don't have insight, so you're not smart enough to see them and see what what they're doing. And the justice empaths try to save you when it's necessary. And people like me, we would only save you if it meant something that would harm us, right? We do things for the greater good, right? We'll burn the house down, to save something, right? Something to save the freaking village or neighborhood or something. And this is how justice empaths think. Now, I'll start off with the sociopath because really this is what this fight is all about. And justice empaths are merely here to fight the fight. To secure victory and have peace of mind at the end of the rainbow or end of the tunnel or something, right? That's why we're in this. We have a stake in the claim. There's a dog in the fight for us. The sociopaths are just there to just do what they're going to do. They're there to pillage and just to drain and suck others' blood and energy. And that's all they do. And play games and manipulate other people. It's for their own personal enjoyment. They're very sadistic. They cannot help it. They're hollow people, so they can't rationalize empathy. And now, like I said, I'll go into the different types of sociopaths that you may encounter and why those sociopaths could be key to your peace of mind or key to your livelihoods, because many of your bosses that on a job typically will be sociopathic or will possess some characteristic of sociopathy, right? 1 in 5 of your bosses out here, wherever you are, will probably likely be a sociopath. Now, I suspect in some environments, everyone is a sociopath. Any of your superiors could be. If you have a team of superiors, they all could be sociopaths. And these are the type of bosses who play games, right? They'll manipulate you. They will gaslight. They will try to make you fail on projects. We've all been in corporate America. We've all held jobs in corporate America. And that particular person that's trying to set you up, even if it means cutting off his nose to spite his face, he'll mess up something. To this very day, I do deals right now that sometimes are undone because of pettiness. Not because it wasn't beneficial. Not because it wasn't beneficial to the whole situation. But just because the person has some kind of inner envies or inner insecurities that played out in such a way that they ruin everything. And that's why I care. I've learned to really be able to see, and really it's part of being an empath is to be able to see a sociopath and know when they're coming, because we can smell you. The Apaths are always the people in the Friday the 13th movies that never live to the end. And that's a better example of those types of people that these sociopaths prey on. But they could be your boss at work. and they'll gaslight you. When I say gaslight you, let me break that down into, so some of you may not be familiar with the term. Gaslighting is really basically one's attempt to make another person feel like they're losing it or they're going crazy. You know, like, so let me give you an example. Like I go in your house and I rearrange the furniture. You know, when you go to the store, when you come back, the furniture's in different places. You go, did I do, you're thinking you're losing it. That's called gaslighting. And your bosses will play games like that for their own sadistic pleasures. Or they may give you an extremely large volume of work that's impossible or a task that's impossible to complete. And they'll do all types of things. And you, in some cases, you may successfully do this stuff. And they would be amazed and surprised, but they will be actually entertained by that. Because they don't really connect to you as a person. So it doesn't matter what kind of stress they're putting you through. And that's your typical boss. You know, they'll overwork you, they'll underpay you, they'll lie to you, you know, they'll promote dissension in the workplace among employees. They'll pick favorites. They'll play all types of games. You know. They'll play all types of games. And basically, all of us have dealt with this person, or will deal with some form of this person. Because like I said, even doing business, you could be independent, not working for anyone, and you still will have to deal with, if you're dealing with anyone who has some measure of success, who has enough money to sustain themselves or whatever, if you're dealing with these types of people, many of them are going to be sociopaths. And that's just going to be a giver, you know, because they gravitate to positions of power, and they're cunning enough and clever enough to cheat the unsuspecting to get where they need to go so they can obtain that power. I mean, it's just as simple as that, you know. But these sociopaths, you know, they could be your friends. If they're your friends, they're only there to use you. You know, you could be a young college-age person. You can have a friend, and they may need a place to stay. You can have an apartment. They'll be your best friend. They'll, you know, whatever. You know, I knew a sociopath back in my college days when we had an apartment, and I had a roommate, and we moved to another apartment. And this guy, you know, one of our friends, he decides that while we had let him stay there, he wasn't even paying any rent or anything, but we had let him stay there. And when we moved to a new place, this motherfucker disappeared the whole day. Didn't help us move a piece of furniture, period. And shows up at the new apartment asking, where did we put his bed at? Did he have a bedroom in there? And we thought that was funny because actually my roommate sold his bed. You know, he hadn't paid any rent for at least a year or something, so goddamn it. You know, it was just due money. But that's what I'm saying. The person had the gall to do that. And see, only someone who's extremely self-centered, you're a narcissist or you're fucking sociopath, which can be interchangeable sometimes. Only someone like that would do such a thing. Because decent, mentally healthy people wouldn't do such a thing. They would be considerate to other people, and if they live somewhere, certainly they would help move. And that's an example of the person, if they're your friend, and how that would play out, right? Let's see. What's another type of sociopath that you folks may encounter? Got one. Because they gravitate to positions of authority, one must assume that they will gravitate to law positions and positions of public safety and so forth. So you have a lot of officers sometimes, and not all of them, but you have a lot of officers in some cases that will use the job to harass and intimidate people, you know. Now, I'll tell you a story that happened to me, because once again, let me tell you something, folks. Before I go into the story, let me say this. See how before you judge what I'm saying and say that I'm just talking, think about everything I'm saying is relative to my experiences. If I tell you something that happened, it actually happened, right? So you can only go on my real account, and according to what I'm telling you, you can only make your assessment based on what I'm telling you. And if I'm telling you such a thing, then make your assessment on that. You know, understand that what I mean by this, and that's what I'm saying. These people are all over our society. They're in every walk of life, rich and poor, fucking every job you can imagine, from the construction worker to the judge to the police officer to the school teacher. They come in many different forms because they're hiding. And that's what I wanted y'all to get. That's why it's a psychopathic kind of thing. But, you know, going back to this, you know, I had a situation where I was stopped by a cop one time, and, you know, it was some years ago, and the cop stopped me, and I never got a ticket. But the cop stopped me, and literally I asked him if I was going too fast. He told me I wasn't going too fast. So then, to which I asked him, was I going too slow? And he told me I wasn't going too slow. So do you see what I'm going with this, right? It was a game. And, you know, he wound up. I think I may have been going maybe like 10 miles or about maybe 6 miles, you know, slower than what it was the posted speed. So in other words, if the speed limit was 70, I was doing 65, you know, 63 or something like that. And, you know, maybe I wasn't in the right lane. Maybe I should have been in the far right lane, and I wasn't doing that. And so, but that gave this guy the authority to stand over me and not really run my license or anything, which I asked him to do because I gave it to him. Not do anything like that, but just literally just stand there and just chide me about how a bad driver I was. And after he got tired of doing it, he just gave my license and let me go. But, you know, I'm just giving you examples of people that have authority to actually stop you in your tracks, playing a game with you, right? And that's an example of another sociopathic person that, you know, in our society, where you could get someone like this in this job, and they could use that job to bother you or harm you or something. Another example I did was in another video, and I wanted you guys to understand this happens more frequently than you think. You have people who do things to your food. You know, food service workers who literally, for entertainment in some cases, or revenge or retribution or something, will play in the food and do things. Now, I personally have seen people in my life at a young age, right, when I was working like, you know, fast food, you know, or something as you know, your first job type thing. I remember seeing people for fun do things, and it was funny back then. But as an adult, you know, as a matter of fact, it wasn't funny back then, because I don't think I had ever eaten at the place just for that reason. You know, imagine working for a pizza shop and you're bringing a bag lunch to a pizza shop. Think about that. Imagine that. You know, but that was me. And, you know, and so going back to this, you know, I've seen this in recent times. I told you guys I walked out of a restaurant because I had someone making my sandwich and they were coughing right out in the open air. They didn't turn around. They didn't walk over there. They literally were coughing in my face. Coughing over my food, sniffling literally over my food. I mean, really. And, you know, and my thought was, well, not over my food, but I was about to get food, and I was standing in line to get food. And so really, my food is the other guy's food. You might as well be. We're all going to eat this food, and you're doing what you're doing over it. And really, what I told you guys, I used in that video, I talked about the intentions, and I said, such a person knows that if because they think they're clever, they will do it to you, and knowing that either you're just too afraid to speak out about it, get your money back, or take some type of action. So they're doing it knowing this, because most people just don't know what to do. They're like a deer in the headlights, and they just freeze up. So they take advantage of those moments. But when you get a person like me, who is a justice empath, we'll snap you. We'll say, give me my money back. We'll tell you to your face we don't want the food, and we'll tell you why we don't want to eat the food. But in that case, I just walked out the restaurant and they lost money for the day. So restaurant owners, remember you're hiring the wrong kind of people. And if your intelligence is low and you don't have this type of insight to see the type of people you're recruiting, you're going to get all types of things. You may even get a lawsuit one day because someone may put something in someone's food and they can prove that it happened at your place, and you may lose everything behind sociopaths. So these are the people, like I said, like that guy who would literally sneeze over your food in front of you and would not, you know, and will give it to you, and just to see the reaction on your face, to see you take this food and they just sneezed over, they just coughed in their hands, and they're cutting your bread and knifing your bread with with the hands that they just coughed in and didn't wash them or anything. You saw this. So you're a sociopath because you know that you're trying to harm somebody, whether you're trying to actually give them your germs or you're just trying to be disgusting for your own amusement. That is a problem. So that's another type of sociopath that you folks will encounter. You know? And I don't even really have to go further. You know, I may give you another person, but I don't even have to go further. You guys get my point about that. There are people in this world who do things to other people, and the victims always sit down and look at themselves in the mirror and say, how did this happen to me? And why? You know? And they ask that question because they can't believe that a person would fathom they can't even fathom that someone would even do the things that are done to people, right? But sociopaths are like that. They're blood suckers, they're energy suckers, they're energy vampires. They don't do anything other than the purpose of harming someone and extracting the negative energy that comes out of you when you react to something they do. Just for that reason. No other reason. They're hollow. Okay? Now, let's move on to the justice empaths. The hybrid empaths. You know, you guys can look up what an empath is. An empath is typically comes in different forms. Some empaths can feel people. You know, they're able to feel other people's emotions, which is with somebody like me. And some empaths are just insightful, where they can predict things or they can sense something in the future, which is me too, in some ways. But those are two types of empaths that have that ability, right? We size up people. We're able to smell people, right? Now, in movie references, you know, or movie plots, the justice empath is always the hero in the movie because they're the person that's bringing the retribution to the villain, and they're the person that's saving the day, and that's what justice empaths do. They come in many forms, just like I told you about that sociopathic cop. Well, guess what? You have hybrid empath cops, or you have empathic cops. And these cops, the reason why they're cops in the first place is because they want justice. See, so really, because of the nature of the cop job, you're going to have both extremes, and I think that's very interesting. That you know, within the same police community, you can have a literally a hybrid empath and a fucking sociopath in the same ranks, and maybe they see each other, maybe they don't deal with each other, but trust me, they're aware of each other. You know. But empaths are people that can feel, right? And because of this great ability we have, we can feel the negative energy of other people. So if someone, let me give you an example. So if someone was very jealous and they were standing around you, the jealousy would register in you as some type of emotion. You would feel it. It would be very uncomfortable for you. You would be able to actually feel the anger that the person has for you. Now, you would understand that because you don't even know this person, it has to be something coming from within themselves, because they're angry at you based on what they're not. And that's what I'm talking about sick people. Justice empaths can smell sick people. We can see these type of mentally sick people, and we understand. Now, we're not going to put up with your BS, and we're going to snuff you, right? If you try to present any BS that will harm us or our loved ones. And I gave you the example of the movie Taken, where Liam Neeson had gone and destroyed a whole faction of villains. You know, one by one, from the weakest villain all the way to the leader. He took all of them out because they had kidnapped his family. See, he was doing it for convictions. His convictions was the love of his family. He was doing it for a purpose. So guess what? He risked his life. He was willing to die to get his family back. See how dangerous he was? And guess what? He triumphed. Remember I told y'all before? We're successful. He triumphed because he had a mission. It was about his heart that was involved. He laid his heart on the line to do this. He could have died, could have never come back from the mission, but he took all of you bastards out, and all of those bastards in the movie out, and was able to effectively bring home his children. But because sociopaths are so ridiculous and so crazy. Notice how they kept having sequels and shit because these motherfuckers kept sprouting up. They couldn't stop bullshitting. Even though they were getting fucked up, they're not smart enough to not stop getting fucked up. Right? So they're going to keep sticking their head up to get whacked because they don't understand. They think on emotions, rage and anger and certain and the negative emotions that they don't even register on good emotions. So they're always going to set themselves in the trap, and that's why justice empaths can always outthink them because they're not coming from a place of rational thought. Everything is about low level emotions. In their mind, they're thinking they're being calculating, but it's just about low level emotions. It is, But the greatest example of a hybrid empath would probably be the Jigsaw from the Saw movies, and like I said. Because on the surface, one will appear. This motherfucker is horrifying, isn't he? But think about this. The sociopaths are horrifying. Remember I told y'all in another video, I gave you a reference to a bullier? Well, the Jigsaw is like a bullier, right? If there's a phrase to be said about that, that's what he is. You could be the baddest motherfucker, but one day you're going to be locked in the house and you're going to be tied to a machine and you're going to be crying like a little bitch for your life and you're not going to know what to do. And your sociopathic mind will get you killed because you may think, well, I'll just do this or I'll do that. And you make the wrong decision based on your lack of thinking for other people or your lack of empathy for other people. See, that's how he'll rig the trap. He's a justice empath. He'll rig it based on your weaknesses, which is your low-level behavior. And you kill yourselves every time. You murder yourselves every time in these Saw movies. So I want y'all to think about, that is a great example of what hybrid empaths are. They have claws and fangs. They can get down in the mud just as dirty with the rabid sociopaths, but they have the bigger jaws, and it's like pit bulls fighting or something. They lock up and they take out the sociopath. They're the killer whale in the shark scenario. They eat the sharks. They hunt the sharks. So, I told you guys, in any way that comes in the fight, justice empaths are prepared, right? If you know how to use guns, we know how to use them better. If you know how to fight, we're black belts. We know karate. We know things, right? We can grapple. We can do all types of things. You don't even understand. Whatever way you want to bring the fight, right? We'll bring it back to you, but we're going to be successful because we're smarter than you guys, right? And the world really, honestly, doesn't need you here. We really don't. And to be completely honest about that, we really don't need you here. The Empaths, I didn't do a long, extensive thing on you because I think I have already addressed that in another video, and I think you guys may go check out my channel. You'll see that video, and I get into the concept of what empaths are and how they enable sociopaths and give justice empaths a reason to have to save them all the time. So I won't make this too much longer. I'm just going to say that recognize when you're dealing with either person, the person that is that will help you in some situation that doesn't want anything in return. That's probably a justice empath or an empathic person. The person who will take the villain somewhere and tie him up and leave him, that'll be the justice empath, the hybrid empath with the claws and fangs. The rabid sociopath is the person at your job or your fake friends who deceive you or rob you or harm you. And the classic, something I was talking to someone today about the Ides of March, Julius Caesar. All of the people who stabbed him and who knifed him in that area that he was killed in. I can't remember where it was, but if you reference the story, the Ides of March, the people who murdered Caesar, those were the sociopaths, right? One could argue that they were just as empaths doing it for the good of Rome, right? For the greater good. Remember, I did that video and I told you guys about the Crusaders, and I correlated that to the justice empaths or whatever. So we don't know Caesar. We don't know if Caesar was a very ambitious, brutal man. We know he was very ambitious, but we don't know to what degree his actual character was. And if he was a sociopath, then maybe they did take him out because they were just as empaths. Either way, recognize the people that are around you, and you can better assess them and deal with them and move in those spaces that protect you. All right? Like, share, subscribe to my videos. I love bad behavior. I don't like sociopaths. And I'll just leave it at that. I'm not even going to comment any further. I don't. And that's the fight for a justice empath. You guys have a good day. We'll talk soon. Take care.